On this episode of the 10 Code Public Safety Podcast, we're discussing recruitment with Murfreesboro Police Department. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Public Safety Information Director Larry Flowers. Today's guest is Murfreesboro Police Department Lieutenant, who's over recruitment, Jason Higgins.
Hello.
Lieutenant Higgins, welcome.
Thank you.
Recruiting new officers is a challenge, not only for MPD, but for law enforcement agencies all across the country. Lieutenant Higgins, let's just jump right into it. What challenges are you facing trying to recruit new officers?
I think one of the things we're seeing these days is there's less interest in the field overall through just across the board. I have the ability and the opportunity to talk to recruiters literally across the nation, and they all seem to have the same. We all seem to have the same issues. So you have a flooded market of job need and not a lot of people out there that are wanting to do the job. So, we're all kind of fighting for the same people a little bit. I think one of the things that we have seen, and I think anybody in Murfreesboro will know, the growth here and the amount of people that's moving into Murfreesboro from other places. So we are trying to take advantage of that. We have hired in the last 3 years that I've been doing recruiting, a lot of officers that were police officers out of state and from all over the country, honestly. And I get calls constantly from people who are police officers in other states that are looking to move to Tennessee and move to this area. So try to take advantage of that where you can. And so it's just a challenging time, and it's a new generation of people coming into the workforce, and they have different wants and desires and that kind of thing, and it's kind of managing that as well.
What new approaches are you doing to try to recruit new officers?
We live in a generation that is fueled by social media. Everybody gets their information from social media. They spend a lot of time on a daily basis on some platform or another. So we have moved a lot of our efforts to those platforms via Facebook or Instagram, X, and most recently this year we've tried some things with some streaming services where we did a couple commercials where we shot, and we're airing those rather on some streaming platforms in various locations to try to garner interest. We can just reach more people with that. It throws a bigger net out, so to speak, when we can cover a lot of different places, and we really don't necessarily have to go physically to those places where we can have a presence and put a footprint there.
Sure. You mentioned those videos. I know we recently released those videos. Mm-hmm. One talking about Murfreesboro being my city, and no matter what state they may be from, mm-hmm. Murfreesboro is now home in my city. So let's take a look at that recruitment video right now.
I am from Panama City, Florida.
Monroe, Louisiana.
I am from Orange County, California.
I am from Princeton, Minnesota.
I am from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Caguas, Puerto Rico. But this is my city.
My department.
My home.
Protecting your city.
Your home. Protecting the heart of Tennessee.
Grow with Murfreesboro Police Department. Be the difference.
So this My City video, well produced. They're talking about Murfreesboro being my city, regardless of where they're from. Just how did you come up with that concept?
We were toying with the idea of maybe doing some sort of ad like that. So I kind of sat down and I wrote a couple commercial ads, went back and forth with them a little bit, presented those to command staff and kind of got their opinions and their feedback on that as well. But one of the things that I noticed that where the majority of our department is not from Murfreesboro. Now they may be from a neighboring city or county or something like that, but we have a ton of people that's not even from the state of Tennessee originally. So I kind of looked at that we're kind of a melting pot type place. I think the college probably has a lot to do with that as well. We get students here in MTSU from all over the country, in the world for that matter. And I kind of wanted to relay that and put that information out there. I know that people relocating to a new area, they want to feel like they're home. And even though they're moving away from maybe what they've always known as home, is establishing a new home. and I wanted to show that we are diverse as an agency, and we have officers all the way from Hawaii, California, Texas, Florida, Alabama, New York, all over the place. So I wanted them to see that they're not alone. There's not just a bunch of people from Tennessee here. There's people from all over the place, and kind of letting them know that this can be their new home.
Sure. And on July 4th, on Independence Day, we released another video targeting the military. So we're going to take a look at that one as well.
For those with a heart to serve, those with a calling to protect. From serving our country to serving their community, the heart of Tennessee is calling.
United States Air Force.
United States Army.
United States Coast Guard.
United States Marine Corps,
But this is my city.
My department. My home.
protecting your city.
Your home.
Protecting the heart of Tennessee.
Grow with Murfreesboro Police Department. Be the difference.
So MPD is fortunate to have a lot of military veterans on our force who have served this country and now serving the residents of the city of Murfreesboro. I know you visited many military bases over the past few years. Just what is your sales pitch of getting those people to come to Murfreesboro?
I think with the military people, they have a particular mindset, and they're very much about their country and serving their communities, and they're looking for, depending on how long they've been in the military, sometimes they're looking for their next mission kind of thing, and it's a purpose type deal for them. It's not about combat or anything like that. It's about serving for those people, and they're looking for their next purpose and their next thing to do that gives them a sense of again, I keep using the word purpose, but purpose in their lives or whatever. And so once they've they've completed their obligations to the government with their military contracts, it's what's next. And so we're trying to provide, and we are so blessed to live in a place that, even though Murfreesboro is extremely fast growing, one of the things that they're very interested in is growth opportunity, and that's one thing that we can provide them. Again, I don't have to tell anybody this that lives here or is going to watch this, that Murfreesboro is absolutely busting at the seams with growth, and we're trying to keep up with it. But that also provides opportunities for those people coming in to, be something other than just a street cop for a long period of time. They can move to a specialized unit or detectives or something of that nature, and it's relatively quick for them in a matter of speaking, that they don't have to spend a decade in patrol before they're eligible to do something different, and that's very attractive to them. Again, we're so fortunate and so blessed to have a mayor and council who are so supportive of us. These people are coming from all over the country, and they're coming from neighborhoods and cities and areas and states that don't have that. So they don't know what that's like, and it's very it's warming to them. It's what they want because it mirrors their values. And it's not just the government, our local government, it's our citizens here as well. Again, we have a kind of a melting pot community as well. It is not uncommon to be out in town and somebody to thank you for your service. It's not uncommon for people to come up and just tell you how much they appreciate you and whatever, and that speaks volumes to our citizens. And that's not just homegrown Murfreesboro people. That is people who moved in here from other places who have something to compare this place to, and they moved from places that are maybe have a really high crime rate, and they see we don't, we try to keep a handle on that and not let Murfreesboro get out of control. Our men and women at our agency do a fantastic job of serving the community here to keep that under control. So, and they see that, and those people, those military people, or anybody for that matter, they want to be a part of that.
You had mentioned city leaders. We are blessed. We are fortunate to have city leaders, from our mayor to our city manager down to the city council, that support the men and women of the Murfreesboro Police Department. And recently, they rewarded them with a pay increase to become more competitive to neighboring cities like Franklin. Just talk about, the support from city leadership. And if you don't mind, if you can go into the details about the raise.
Sure. So we were, again, very blessed to have that. Honestly, it's one of those kind of things where that's what we needed to do to stay competitive. Like I said at the beginning of this, it is a super competitive market. And unfortunately, it's not getting cheaper to live out here in the world today. It's getting more expensive, and that includes us as well. So when we're competing with, being in a neighbor to Nashville, the Highway Patrol last year got an extremely high raise. Metro got a high raise. Franklin just got a raise, and all these other places. So especially a lot of our out-of-state candidates, they're coming from places where they're making a lot of money. And even though the cost of living here is different, they don't quite understand that. They're just seeing the pay difference and what they're used to making and what they're going to make in Tennessee. And they're trying to take as little of a pay cut as they can. But we're talking about, maybe half of what they were making in, say, California. And granted, again, the cost of living is a lot different there. But, we had to do that to stay competitive. And we had to do that to keep on par, because we do want to keep our city safe. And that requires people. And that requires officers, and good officers. And unfortunately, that's just where we are today. It's a competitive market, and we have to offer something that maybe others don't quite offer, and pay is part of that. And the council, I believe, and the mayor and the manager, everybody realized that, and were able to help us out in that situation, which has been a great recruitment tool for us. We're starting to kind of slowly see some of the results of that, and I'm fielding more phone calls and emails and that kind of stuff, people wanting that opportunity because they know it's a good place to a city to be in, but it also provides them with a little more income as well. Right now, basically, the new starting salary for a non-certified officer is $62,500 a year. That is pretty high. Middle Tennessee, that puts us a little bit above Franklin, a little bit behind Nashville. So I think that once you complete the training program, you go to step 2, which is just over $64,000 a year. And then we are on a step system to, if the city votes it in or whatever, we do get that raise every year as well. So that, compared to our neighbors, is pretty high. Again, Middle Tennessee, across the state of Tennessee, probably is the highest paid law enforcement in the state, minus state agencies like the TBI or the Highway Patrol or something. But we are doing pretty well, but we're, compared to what we're around and neighboring agencies and people that we're kind of closely competing with, we're on par, I guess I would say. I mean, we're a little above some and a little below the others. So.
Right, but quite competitive. So, and you kind of touched on it, but by having that competitive pay, that does help with recruitment as well, right?
Absolutely. I think the two things that I see most, I was speaking with a gentleman yesterday on the phone from another state who was, they're considering moving to Middle Tennessee, and he's been in law enforcement for a while. But the pay for him was pretty close to what he currently makes, I think, or somewhere in that neighborhood. But it's also about the opportunity, like we talked about earlier. And it's not just the pay. It is the opportunities we have. We have a lot of perks of take-home car systems and things of that nature. Our benefit packages are pretty good and things of that nature. We provide all your equipment, your uniform, pay for all your training, all that kind of stuff. But the growth opportunity coupled with that is two of the major things for us as far as a recruitment tool.
Right. What about incentives, other incentives, besides like your take-home vehicle, great benefits, things of that nature, right. Language incentives? Talk about that.
Right. So right now we're currently doing 2 different languages that we give an incentive for, a pay increase for. It's an extra $1,820 a year, I believe it is, if you speak Spanish or Laotian. And it is it's an oral test given, and it's kind of done via Zoom, I believe. But they sit down, they talk to somebody. It's basically holding a conversation. You take the test one time. If you pass it, you're good to go, and you get that extra $1,820 a year added to your salary, which is probably roughly about a step, maybe a little more than a step would be. So it's kind of moving you up in pay a little bit, but you're always going to get that as long as you're here. Another incentive we have is for EMT. So if you hold your EMT license, you have that as well. And now that does require some retesting to keep your license, everything on the EMT side of things. But if you have that, I know they approved that maybe a year or two ago. Really good thing for us. To be honest with you, I don't know of another law enforcement agency that does an incentive for EMT. It makes a world of sense, just because if we're in a what we would refer to as a hot zone, if there's some active going on and it's just the police and EMS and fire, something like can't come into that scene yet. If we have somebody hurt or injured, or an officer hurt or injured, I have somebody there possibly who is EMT trained, who can render aid, and that may mean the difference in life and death in somebody in those just fleeting moments or whatever. So we have a few officers who've taken advantage of that, some who are already EMT licensed, others who have completed their EMT license since they've started with us, and taking advantage of that as well. And I think that's an extra, I want to say maybe $1,400 or $1,500 more a year, something like that. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's somewhere in that range.
And I know we've had a few retirements, but what is the current number of officers, and how many short are we?
We are budgeted now for 331 officers. The city did grant us 15 additional positions this year in the budget, and I think right now we are 32 short as of today, I believe. We have a couple officers that are moving on to moving out of state, moving on to different fields of work. We've had one retirement already, another retirement coming up we know of, possibly some more this year. We do have 7 new officers that just started this past week. This is week 2 for them, and we have an additional 6 starting in August. And so that'll add to those numbers, and then we have a test class of laterals only coming up at the end of this month. And we have 3 more test dates this year.
Sure. And those 7 officers, are they part of the early onboarding process?
They are. Yes, they are.
What is it for those who do not know what early onboarding is?
Sure. Another thing that we kind of looked at doing was actually the chief wanted to figure out a way to try to get people on board faster. And what we were seeing was in our old process was we may have a test date, but the hire date was maybe several weeks or months later, and we were losing people to that process because people were putting out applications to, say, multiple agencies, and they were just kind of going to the first people that called them. And so we were losing people to that process, so we wanted to figure out a way to get them in quicker. I know other agencies that do that to an extent. They don't do it the way we do it. So when I set this up, and me and some other people got together and kind of come up with this, but basically we bring them in about 6 weeks before their actual training starts. So when I said we had 7 that just started and 6 starting in August, the 7 that's already here will be in that early onboard program for 6 weeks, and then in August when the other group starts, they will join that other group to start their official training in orientation. But basically for that 6-week period, what we do is we have a couple admin days where we have to go through some stuff with them, classroom type material they have to go over. And the rest of the time they're doing ride-alongs. We build a schedule for them, and we assign them to different shifts. And it's almost like a paid internship, for lack of a better term. So they're getting paid while they're here, they're earning their salary, and they're just getting to learn, but they're not getting graded yet. So it's a very non-stress environment for them where they can learn, they can ask questions to the officers they're riding with, but they're not getting graded yet. They're not expected to know anything. We started that last year. I think about March of last year was our first class. And I know just talking to some of our in-house instructors, they have told me that they could definitely tell the difference between an early onboarder and somebody else because the early onboarders had already had some exposure to certain things. So when they were doing scenario training, they had a better idea how to handle that than the ones that just started. And so we're seeing it pay good dividends so far. It's been a good process. We actually hired an officer that had worked for us about 7 years prior. Wow. And he'd been gone for 7 years, and he came back. And he told me, he said, I wish we would have done this when I got hired the first time. It's been that beneficial to him, is kind of getting back in the saddle and getting reacclimated to things. So it's been a very good process so far. When I talk to people, whether they're a college student or whatever, they're very excited about that because they like the no pressure aspect of it. I get to ask questions and I'm not expected to know anything, and I can learn I get a kind of a jump start and a head start on my career.
Sure. What is the age, the minimum age for someone to apply as a recruit officer here at MPD? And we talked about a lot of out-of-state officers, but what are we doing to try to encourage high schoolers and college students to apply when they're age eligible?
So the minimum age for us right now is 20. You have to be 20 years old to apply. That's you have to wait until you're 20 or you don't meet the minimum qualifications for us to apply. With high schools, we have done some stuff with the local high schools that have criminal justice programs. We've been involved in some of their skills competitions and grading them and that kind of stuff, and it affords us the ability to speak with some of them. The college students, we have, at least over the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, we have been going to a lot of career fairs, college career fairs. We have went all over the South doing that because people are looking for those opportunities. And sometimes in colleges, even though they may go to, say, Mississippi State, they're from Murfreesboro.
Right.
And so they may want to come back home. They just chose a college out of state for whatever reason. And so, and they're looking for those opportunities, and they're kind of weighing out their options. And what we want to do is just make sure that people know we exist and kind of introducing us to them. And a lot of times I've gone places and I've gone to colleges literally all over the South, and they've never heard of Murfreesboro before. And so, we'll start talking about MTF. You've heard of MTSU. Well, yeah, I've heard of MTSU. Well, it's in Murfreesboro. And so we start talking about the city, and we start talking about the size of the city. And quite honestly, we're a bigger city than most of the major college towns.
Right.
You have your Knoxvilles and places that are bigger than that, but a lot of your, Ole Misses and Mississippi States and places like that are not Southern Miss. Or they're not big places. But it's been great to have that opportunity to go out and speak with some people like that. We have garnered some interest from those students from other schools, and it's an opportunity for them to do something different, to maybe move away from home.
Right.
And kind of how I like to tell them is you get to write your own story. You go to some place where nobody knows who you are, and you get to write your own story, not living in the shadow of home, kind of thing. So,
exactly.
But it's been, we spend a lot of time with college kids and talking to college kids and military people. I take a lot of phone calls from, people that are getting out of the military a year from now, and we talk about laying out some like a game plan for them when they're going to get out, and talking to me before that, and let's work on something where we can line that up for you, a testing date, how that lines up with you getting out. So I spend a lot of time on the phone and emails, and I feel like I kind of work around the clock almost sometimes because we do talk to people that's in other states and different time zones and things of that nature.
Right.
So I try to meet them where it's convenient for them, more so than me.
So what about retention? What is the department doing to try to retain the officers that we have?
Again, it goes back to the growth opportunity. Obviously, the pay raise helps, because, our men and women have families and stuff like that they're trying to provide for. And obviously, when your income is better, that better affords you the opportunity to do that, where they're not looking for a better paying job because they have a good paying job. And unless they're just leaving the field altogether, we're kind of in an age too where a lot of companies, private organizations, are hiring former police officers for cybersecurity things and things of that nature. And unfortunately, we really can't compete with that because they're making a career choice to completely leave the field. So I think just going back to, the benefits and stuff that they already had, the pay increases, and the city's been very generous with that, to help us. And they're not just giving us money just to give us money. I mean, they're giving us money because we need that. We need that money to stay competitive, to retain the good officers we have, because it's a very expensive to bring on somebody new with the testing and the hiring and the equipment and uniforms is very, very expensive. So we're making a huge investment into an individual when we bring them on. So we want to keep what we have. Plus, not to mention the fact if they've been here for a while, there's a good chance that we've invested, a lot of money into that person to train them in specialized units and things of that nature. So, but again, I think having that opportunity to grow and to be a part of something else, I think that's probably one of the major retention things. I think that we have. I think sometimes I've argued I don't know that everybody realizes how good they have it.
Right.
When they've come from another agency and they have something to compare it to, I think they realize a little bit more maybe. I did. When I came here, I came from another agency, so I knew how good I had it here compared to what I came from.
Right.
But yeah, I think again, it kind of goes back to opportunity and at the growth rate, we're only going to get bigger. Our department's only going to get bigger. It's only going to grow, which creates more opportunities.
What's the very first step if you want to apply for a job here? I think one thing, you better get in shape, right?
There's a PT test. If you visit our website and go to our recruitment page, there's a YouTube link on there that you can go and watch the PT test. It's narrated and it shows you and tells you at the same time what you have to do. It explains that whole process. The one thing I always caution people is we were fortunate enough to have City TV come out and shoot that for us. I have to warn people a lot that those girls make it look pretty easy, but keep in mind they shot that in scenes, not all at one time.
Right.
So I don't want it to look too easy where they come out and underestimate the test and then they don't do well on it. So I encourage them to, go online, because you have to do it with a weighted vest on. Go online, spend $50, buy a weighted vest to train in, and make sure that you're in good shape. So obviously the first part of applying is applying, actually, going online and applying. There is a new process we're kind of going through now where we kind of screen the applicants just to make sure there's nothing there that's going to be a disqualifier. And by that I mean there's certain things that the state won't certify you if you have in your background or whatever. So we have to make sure those things don't exist. So if we do want to hire you, we can. So we look at those things. If everything's good, you get invited to the PT test date. Depending on when you apply, you could be offered a couple different dates. Again, it could be an early onboard class, so that would give you 2 dates to choose from. But once you come take the PT test, if you pass that, you'll take a written test the same day. If you pass the written test, you'll interview the day after that. After that, then we'll ask you to submit to a psychological test. And then once we get the results back from that, the doctors tell us that you're fine there, we'll send you to backgrounds. And then you go through the background check, which takes roughly a month. And then it just kind of goes from there. Once the background's complete, you have a drug screen and a physical to take at the end. The whole process takes roughly 3 months, three and a half months, something like that, from the day you take your test to the day you would start.
What's the easiest way for people to contact you if they're looking for a job?
Probably via email. Our Join MPD email address goes, I enter those. So they can email that at any time. And once we I understand kind of what you're looking for, a lot of times I prefer to talk to people over the phone more than I do an email back and forth.
Right.
So once we get that email established, and then I'll usually try to ask if they want to call and we can speak over the phone. And then I'll answer the questions there. And then at that point, usually they've got my cell phone number, and then we can communicate back and forth with that as well. I know a lot of times we have people that have spouses and things of that nature, so I invite that as their questions as well, because it is kind of a package deal. Everybody's got to be happy, and so I invite them to come talk to us, and I want everyone to make a good choice for their families and themselves.
Right.
So.
Okay, appreciate you, and thank you for joining us. We've been discussing recruitment with Murfreesboro Police Department Lieutenant Jason Higgins, who's over recruitment. The Public Safety Podcast originates from the Murfreesboro City Hall, City Council chambers. Thanks for listening via Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music Audible. For more information on the public safety and the fast-growing city of Murfreesboro, visit the city's website at www.murfreesborotn.gov. Until next time, I'm Larry Flowers. You have a great day.